Hello friends, I'm Professor John Gallagher and welcome to CircuitPython School, an introduction to CircuitPython for absolute beginners. We'll get ready to code by setting up our board with the latest CircuitPython software and libraries that we'll need, and we'll install the software Mu, which we'll use to write Python programs. So let's get started, Maker. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that our board is running the very latest version of CircuitPython. If you have a new board, these steps will put CircuitPython on the board, and if your board already has CircuitPython installed, these steps will make sure that you've upgraded to the latest version. So to do this, open a browser and head to circuitpython.org. Click Downloads, scroll and find the board that we're using, CircuitPlayground Bluefruit. Click that, it'll open a new page, then click on the Download UF2 button. Your browser is probably showing a number that's later than the one that's shown here. The open source team behind CircuitPython is always updating the language with new features and better stability, so just get the latest one listed. This will download a file with a .uf2 extension at the end, and this file will let us put CircuitPython on our board. Now do note that the .uf2 file is specific to the type of board that you're working with. If you use a different board in the future, for example later in the semester my students switched to using a Raspberry Pi Pico W board, then you'll want to make sure that you download the right UF2 file to use with that board. After clicking download, your browser might save this file to your downloads folder. I have my browser configured to ask where I want to save this, so I'm going to save mine to the desktop. And we just downloaded a .uf2 file that we'll use to put CircuitPython on the board. So now I'll minimize my browser. My UF2 file is saved to the desktop. You might need to open your downloads file to find yours. And now let's set up your CPB to accept the .uf2 file that we just downloaded. To do this, plug your USB cable into your computer, then plug the micro USB end into your CPB, and it's very important to make sure that you're using a data cable. Many cables are charge only, so if for some reason your CPB doesn't show up in the desktop like I'm about to demonstrate, you might be using the wrong cable. Now I'm using a CPB that I've already installed a project on, so you're not seeing anything flash on the board, but if you're using a brand new CPB, you'll probably see a rainbow pattern swirl across the circle of LED lights on the board. Looks cool, but this is about to go away. Now there's a chance you might see a device mounted on the desktop like a USB drive that has the name CircuitPy. If you see this, it just means that your board has already been configured to run an earlier version of CircuitPython, but you'll want to follow these steps anyway. This is going to ensure that your device has the latest version of CircuitPython, which should be included in the UF2 file that you just downloaded. So with your CPB plugged into the data cable and the other end is plugged into your computer, double tap the reset button, that's the button right in the center of the CPB, tap tap, just like that. You should see the device flash, then the circle of LEDs on the device will light up green, and you'll see a new device mounted on your computer named CPlayBoot. Now this is your CircuitPlayground, and when mounted on your computer, it looks and acts just like a USB drive, so you can drag and drop files onto this device. Now if you're using a CircuitPlayground, you do want to make absolutely sure that your device is mounted with the name CPlayBoot. The device shouldn't say CircuitPy. CPlayBoot, not CircuitPy, is what we want, because that means we're in what's called bootloader mode. And we need to be in bootloader mode, CPlayBoot, so that we can drag the UF2 file over onto our boot. You never want to drag the UF2 file over if it says CircuitPy. That'll just put an extra file on your device and it'll take up extra space. And more importantly, it won't update CircuitPython. If your device says CircuitPy, just double tap that reset button again. That should put the device into bootloader mode. Again, it'll be named CPlayBoot. You'll also see the ring of LED lights show up as a solid green. Do not continue if your device says CircuitPy. Now after doing this, if your board flashes green but then right away flashes and stays red, then you're likely using an older CPB that needs a little bit of TLC. I'll put a link in the description for more info on that case. But if your board is plugged into your computer, it's named CPlayBoot, and all the lights are green, then drag the UF2 file that you just downloaded, that's the one that starts with Adafruit_CircuitPython_CircuitPlayground, and drop it into CPlayBoot. Now this file will copy over, the CPlayBoot device will dismount from your computer. If you have a Mac, you'll probably get a disk not ejected properly warning in the upper right. Just ignore that, this is not a problem at all, and you'll see a new device mounted on your computer named CircuitPy. Congratulations! You've just configured your CPB to run CircuitPython. By the way, if you ever have a CPB that you haven't used in a while and you're wondering what version of CircuitPython is installed on the board, just plug it in, open the CircuitPy volume when it mounts, then open up the boot_out.txt file, and you'll see the version that's installed and the date that version was created. Next, we're going to extend the CircuitPython language so that it can do all sorts of things like control LED lights, work with motors, and work with Bluetooth. You see, the Python programming language by itself doesn't know how to do these things, but the CircuitPython folks have programmed a bunch of extensions called libraries that add all sorts of neat capabilities. So to get the libraries, open a browser and head to circuitpython.org, click the Libraries tab, then scroll down, and the first bundle should have a number that matches the version of CircuitPython that you just downloaded, so click this top bundle, and again, yours might save it to the download folder. I'm saving mine to the desktop. Then you can minimize your browser. Now let's take a look at the folder that we just downloaded. And again, I saved mine to the desktop. Yours might be saved to your downloads folder. And the folder should have a name like this. It starts with Adafruit-CircuitPython-bundle and then a number. So let's click on this folder and take a look inside. Now we see that there's a folder called examples. And later, when you're more comfortable with CircuitPython programming, you can look inside these files and see all sorts of sample code for doing lots of cool things. For example, there are a whole bunch of sample programs in here for LED light animation. These start with LED_animation, but for now, I'm going to back out here, and instead, I'm going to double click on this folder that says LIB. That's where all the CircuitPython library files are. And if you scroll through this, you will see there are hundreds of files with not very user-friendly names. Now you might wonder, hey, why don't the developers of CircuitPython simply put all of the libraries into the UF2 file that we just copied over to the device? Well, the reason for that is that all these libraries together would take up a lot of room. In fact, more room than's available on a CPB. That device doesn't have much storage. And also, you never need all of the library capabilities at once. Now, what we're about to do is to select a group of libraries for the CPB that work for the various components, LED lights, sensors, motors, Bluetooth, that we'll be using in this course. Now, if you're not using certain capabilities, then you don't need those libraries, and you can always copy over a library later when you need it. So on my Mac, here I am in my desktop folder, and I'm going to create a brand new LIB folder where we'll drag over just the library files that we need. So if you have a Mac, you can right-click or two-finger click, select New Folder. I'm going to name this folder LIB. It's very important that it's lowercase LIB. Then I'll open this new folder. There's nothing in it, but I'm going to return to the original folder that contains all of the libraries. And for the initial lessons in CircuitPython School, we need these folders and files. I've got them highlighted in the upper right up here. There's 15 in total. Now we could always add these for projects as we need them, but it's probably easier for us to copy these over all at once, so you're ready for most of the playlist. Now I could just drag these over from one folder to the other, but that will move them. And since I'm using a Mac, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the Option key when I drag the file over, and then when I release the mouse, this will copy the files over rather than just moving them. So I'll say the name of each file or folder that I copy over so that you can follow along, and don't worry about committing to memory all of these obscure names or what they do. I'll cover those in future lessons. But to give you an idea of what we're using, this first one that I've copied over, Adafruit_APDS9960, that's going to add capabilities to use a sensor that's going to detect proximity and gestures. These next two folders are for working with Bluetooth, Adafruit_BLE and Adafruit_Bluefruit, the whole word Bluefruit_connect. Adafruit_bus_device is going to allow us to communicate with different devices we connect to the board. Adafruit_CircuitPlayground is going to give us access to special features on the CPB. Adafruit_debouncer is going to be used for buttons. Adafruit_LED_animation is going to let us do some cool things with LED lights. Adafruit_LIS3DH, and again, you want to make sure that you're getting the right one there, is going to allow us to work with the device's accelerometer so we can detect when it's being moved and in which direction. Adafruit_motor is going to allow us to work with motors. Adafruit_MPR121, again, make sure you got the right spelling there. That's going to allow us to work with a special board that has 12 different sensors that can sense touch. Adafruit_thermistor is going to allow us to detect temperature. Oh, and I almost forgot there's a separate temperature sensor, Adafruit_MCP9808. We're going to use that one too. Next is Adafruit_VL53L1X. And again, make sure you spell that right. There are a bunch of ones that have similar spelling in there. That'll allow us to work with a distance sensing laser we'll attach to the device. Neopixel.mpy is another library to allow us to work with LED lights. And finally, grab this one, simpleio.mpy. That's a file for managing input and output. So in our new LIB folder, you should see 15 items in here, 7 folders, and 8 MPY files. Now that we've got this LIB folder set up, we're ready to copy the LIB folder to our CircuitPlayground. So now I'm going to close the window that contains all of the Adafruit libraries. I don't need all of those files. Then I'm going to navigate back to the LIB folder that I just created that contains only those folders and files that I need. And I'm going to drag this folder, the LIB folder I just created, onto my CircuitPy volume. You may be asked if you want to replace or merge files. If so, just select Replace. This copies over the LIB folder with all the libraries that I need onto my CPB, and it might take about 3 minutes to copy over the entire folder. Now, another thing I recommend for my students is to create a folder to hold the latest configuration files for the board. That would be the LIB folder that we just spent time creating, and the UF2 file. And the reason to do this is because sometimes, very rarely, a board might become corrupt or files might get deleted, and if you've got a backup of your files, you can quickly drag over the files that you need. That can be an important time saver, especially if something happens when you're taking an exam. So what I'm going to do here on my desktop is I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to name this CPB setup, and in there I'm going to put in the LIB folder that I created for the CPB, as well as my UF2 folder. So the steps we just took are to set up our board. We shouldn't need to repeat these unless the board gets corrupt, or if there's a new version of CircuitPython released and we want to upgrade our board to the latest UF2 and libraries. And I'm ready to put a CircuitPython program onto this device that'll do some cool stuff. Now, in order to write CircuitPython programs, we're going to use a free program named Mu, M-U, and it's available for Mac and Windows. Now, in the way that Microsoft Word is used to create word processing files, Mu lets us create Python programs and save them to the CPB. So let's get Mu. We'll open up a browser, go to the unusual URL codewith.mu, there's no .com in there, click Download. Since I have a Mac, I'm going to click Download under the Mac option. Your browser may save your file to the Downloads folder. My browser asks me where I want to save. I'll select the desktop. Then you can minimize your browser, double-click the DMG file, agree to the terms of service. We see some files being installed. You'll see a Mu icon on my desktop, but I'm going to ignore that icon. Then use this install window to drag the Mu editor icon into the Applications folder. That'll copy Mu into the Applications folder. And then you can close the Finder window and also drag these two icons into the trash. They were used by the installation process. We don't need them anymore. If you open the Finder window and click the Applications folder, you can now verify that you've indeed got a program called Mu Editor in there. Now, I'm also going to drag a Mu Editor from my Applications folder into the dock. Then you can double-click to launch Mu. On the Mac, you'll be asked if it's okay to open Mu since it was downloaded from the internet and not the App Store. Click Open. This is okay. Mu will load. And if you're asked to select the mode, make sure that you select the option that has CircuitPython in it. So nice work, Pythonista. Your CPB is updated, loaded with libraries, and ready for greatness, and your computer is cooking with Mu. So next up, we'll start coding so that you can start to make something awesome.